Ladies and gentlemen, you all know that Beethoven wrote some beautiful symphonies, and you all know that there are problems in terms of tempo, but that's only when you approach them from a single beat perspective. We did it differently. We approached them from a whole beat perspective. We recorded all 9 of them in a beautiful, mind-blowing transcription made by his favorite student Karl Czerny. And we recorded that, Alberto and myself, on one of the most, if not the most beautiful forte piano ever built. And I'm saying that because it's my own instrument, so I'm entitled to say that, but it's probably true as well. Those recordings are going to be released officially very soon. Check out the website for that. In the context of that release, we created an incredible package with 26 hours of podcast where Alberto and I guide you through the entire set of symphonies, a kind of whole beat listening guide, or a listening guide to the symphonies in whole beat. I will be making, it's not done yet at the time of this recording, an entire course on notation explicitly for these symphonies, movement by movement, making you understand why Beethoven chose that particular tempo or that notation, and bring everything like a little bit in balance in order for you to also understand other pieces outside the symphonies. And there is a ton more. One of the things is also an interview with Alberto and myself, and I wanted to have someone for that interview that was a kind of outsider, but insider enough in the classical music world and also in the early music world, perhaps like authentic or historically informed performance practice, in order to challenge us during this interview. And so that interview took place in this studio. I'm going to give you 15 minutes of that, some of the highlights. This gives me an opportunity to talk about the upcoming release of these symphonies, of course, but also I'm proud of the fact that we had Werner Trio as the interviewer. Werner Trio, for those of you living in Belgium, especially in Flanders, he's one of the most known radio hosts, classical music radio hosts, with over 30 years of experience. So you're gonna get 15 minutes of that great interview. You will enjoy it until the end. I can promise you that. There were some funny moments, but also some really serious conversations that, took place. So without further ado, here it is.
Gentlemen, let me first put you ask you a very essential question, and one that is very hard to answer. Who are you?
Where should we start from? You want to start, Wim?
So my name is Wim Winters.
Who is much younger than you are, if I may mention that.
Oh yes, of course. Mentally we are the same age, by the way.
No, we don't know if at that point mentally I am 50 or you are 28. I don't. That's the question. Yeah, I studied very early. I studied piano when I was 6, and I entered in the conservatory in Italy, in my first conservatory when I was 8. At that time it was still possible to do these sort of things. And
it no longer is now.
No, because now to enter in conservatory in Italy you need to finish public school first.
I see.
And I did the two things together, and so when I finished conservatory I actually finished I got my master degree in conservatory in Italy before getting my high school diploma, which is very weird to say. But then, since I was still very young, I wanted to have some experience abroad, so I left Italy.
So that's why you went to LA.
So at first I went to Germany, in Berlin, because there was a teacher that I was very interested to study with, which was actually the teacher that I had also in LA, so he moved and I moved with him.
And who was he, and why did you think he was so interesting?
So my teacher was Fabio Bidini, an Italian pianist, very known especially in the States, but also had quite a career as a professor and also as a performer in Europe.
And known for what?
Known as a mainstream pianist, so had a quite important career, but he was a very interesting teacher, and very specific for what he wanted, and so he gave me in my opinion, the best education that I could get.
A sense of detail?
In the sense of detail, learning how to look at the score, and it's unbelievable because even if the conclusions that we had, him and I, like were different in terms of opinion. The mindset that he taught me was essential to start the project with him.
Yes, that's why I asked a sense of detail.
Yeah.
Later you studied with Jan Michiels over here, who was a very analytical pianist as well, philosophical, scientific.
Yes.
Wim, you studied at the Sweden Conservative quite a longer time ago, a few decennia ago.
The previous century, actually.
Yes, previous century, right. You just said that the clavichord played an important role in your interest in tempo.
Well, let me rephrase it. When I was in Amsterdam, Jacques van Ootmessen, he passed away in 2015, but he was always studying also and like focusing on the importance of tempo choice, because choice of tempo is of course your foundation of an interpretation.
Of course. John Cage, a great composer, said time is the most important element in music.
And it's important to mention, because sometimes people say, you with your metronome marks and your focus is a little bit dogmatic, but it's actually for all of us. If you want to reconstruct the composer's opinion or not, for every, let's say, let's not use the term professional musician, but like if you want to be in control of what you do, you have a certain tempo floor, and from there you build everything. And Jacques was very focused on that, 18th century, 17th century tempo ordinario. So I didn't know that at the time, but I learned a lot of things about notation and all these things. And then I remember one day when I was not yet in the class of Willem Brons, but in Jan Huizing's class, and he was very focused on Chopin, and of course, and I had to play a Mozart sonata, and I was just driving with my bike to the Waalsekerk, where I had to was playing a trio sonata by Bach, and I thought, like, listen, but that's only 6 years difference. Well, about 6 years. Yet the tempo difference is so big, and I asked Jacques, it doesn't make sense, right? And he said, oh boy, you're going to run into some troubles.
Okay, let's become philosophical for a moment then. What's the difference between music and noise?
Alberto, that's a question for you.
You're the philosopher.
Of course, and it's expression, and there comes the point, of course. So if you say like, okay, obsessed with tempo, I don't think so. And even today, what our work is about, the focus is, of course, or the spotlights are on our tempo reconstruction, but there is more than that,
of course,
because that changes everything. So there's much more to say than just we are reconstructing a metronome mark in a way that we can play it. But at the end, it's of course, it's a mindset in the sense of, okay, what do we want with that music? Do we really care for the intention of the composer, or do we want to give our own additional story layer on that?
Okay, Alberto, what's your answer on that? Because of course, nowadays in historically informed practice, many artists or musicians say it's up to me to use the materials of ancient music and then make something new out of it, update it, use it in connection with other forms of art, things like that.
Well, it might be a little bit hard what I'm about to say, but in my opinion, the hip world and also the mainstream world didn't really make up their mind in that sense. Why? Because yes, they say, it's up to the performance, the interpretation, and the expression of the personality of the artist. Yeah. But at the same time, when you are a student in conservatory, the teachers feel a sort of responsibility, but also a sort of urge in having leverage on what they ask to their students, and which translates into the fact that if you're a teacher and you really want your student to do something, you cannot just say, you have to do this because I see like that, or it's my opinion. Because at that point, also the student said, okay, but this is my opinion as well. Yeah. And so, like in that regard, we are even, no? We are on the same level. And so, what the teachers do at the same time, they call upon the expressing or understanding the score and the composer's intentions. So it's not really true. I mean, they claim that everyone is free, but like in the moment that where they want, or when they want the student to really do something, then the authority of the composer is suddenly in the room.
Yes.
So it's a little bit, it's a little bit, double standard.
Double standards.
Yeah. And so at that point, I mean, in the mainstream world, I can sort of understand that, because it's like the mainstream world where I come from never really had the intention of fully reconstruct at this point. It's more like to raise the personality of the artist. But from the early music world, which I didn't know anything. I was, again, my first touch with that was with Wim. And I understood that there was a philological like study, or like reconstruct something. But at the same time, they do basically the same things that we do on modern instruments, and so there's something that it's not really in balance, in my opinion,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So,
how did the two of you meet?
That's quite a story.
So I knew his work through YouTube in 2018, 1 year before we met. It was my last year in Los Angeles.
And by the way, when I received this email, we still have a discussion about what was in the first email he wrote. I think that you asked to play the Hammerklavier Sonata on one of the...
I didn't. I can prove it, but...
I thought like, I checked him and I thought like, okay, it's great that all fun aside, like all joke aside, was an important step to have interest from someone who's really a top pianist. Because now, let's face it, when you play slower in our world, also in early music, it's like, you do it because you cannot play faster.
Yeah, that's a comment you often find on your YouTube channel as
well.
Just
practice a little bit more and then everything will be fine. So Alberto played Rachmaninoff and Prokofiev. It's out of discussion. If he cannot do it, you cannot do it either. Right. So that was an important thing. But then, like, okay, we have two fortepianos, an old one from 1820, 1825. And a new one built by Joris Potfli, and I thought like a Steinway guy like playing on these instruments, the Hammerklavier Sonata, he is destroying the instrument like in 5 minutes. But then you started on the Frenzel, I remember. Quickly saw like amazing. It was still, I'm impressed how fast you just changed your touch, everything, the whole approach, and that's very important also for me. Like, pianists have the tendency to listen to their instruments generally. And so I moved him to the Fritz, brand new at the time. And I was listening from a distance to his Hammerklavier Sonata, and I thought, you heard the development of tone and touch, and I thought, like, imagine that we would collaborate. And something interesting happened because I was challenging him. I remember that I approached and I said, like, can I maybe say something like about the use of your pedaling? Because pedaling like all over the place.
Of course.
And that started the collaboration, because next time he came back and he said, can I challenge you and say, and pretend that these composers were not idiots and what they just wrote in the score was actually what we should do also in regard of pedalings. And then I said like, but that's maybe a little bit too much. And there we challenged each other. And we came to a floor which was like very inspirational to work on.
That's my question actually, because I want to speak about the Hammerklavier in connection with it.
From the moment you sit down at an instrument and you try things like, are you researching or are you experimenting? I think in musicology or in music in general, like performance practice, both should go hand in hand, which is a little bit, of course, also the tension, can I say it like that, between musicology and performance practice. Both need each other. And actually, one that wants to belong to
Are you a musicologist as well?
I've never been. No, I've no title in that.
No, okay.
But
just asking.
I come as an outsider, complete outsider. But it's at the same time true that the musicology, as we have it now, is not solving this issue at all. It's on so we have no other choice.
So it's a performance problem actually, because musicologists often say, well, It's not important because nobody follows the measurements.
Well, that's not entirely true. I mean, it's interesting to see the recent evolution where metronome marks are more and more and more on the table.
Right.
And that's like inevitable from the moment that in the 60s we really started this, and it's goes way before that, but let's say like with those what we call people that we call pioneers. Of course, in the 80s metronome marks were hot, but then of course they discovered they were unplayable, and so they were left on off the table.
Yeah.
But now today, from the musicology standpoint, it's inevitable to talk about metronome marks because guess what? There is not a single source from the 19th century that says that metronome marks are not the intention of the composer and that you should not follow them.
To the contrary, Alberto, how many can you do in a second? Perhaps you can try it out on the table.
I recently checked the piano at home, and for, let's say, for a short run.
A short run, yes.
I cannot,
not an entire piece.
In
an embellishment, for instance.
An embellishment or a quick scale with only one note and not like thirds. I can arrive to between 12 and 15 notes a second. 15, but only if it's like it's an exception in a Beethoven sonata with a metronomization of Czerny. But let's say 12, 13 notes per second, no more than that.
But that's the platinum source for whole beat, like the metronome joke of the allegretto of the 8th Symphony. But other than that,
you mean ta ta ta, Mr.
Melzel,
Lieber Melzel.
Yeah. How is it again?
Dum 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 dum
ta 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 ra pa pa pa.
Of course, it's played today. But now when we talk about, let's just touch upon it, like the metronome mark is 8th note in Schindler's Canon is 72. Well, if it is Schindler or Beethoven, doesn't matter. It's a little bit faster in the allegretto. But Schindler says like the joke there, the ta-ta-ta are 16 notes. The joke is because the metronome ticks indicate the ta-ta-ta. Well, but the metronome mark is 8th note.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you have a tertiary division.
There is just, and the great thing about the Melzel canon, and of course, by the way, this is never quoted, even not in Norden's thesis on. I mean, you cannot get closer to Beethoven. If we had this written by Beethoven in a letter, it would be game over.
Yeah. Well, it's also to be found on YouTube. Ta ta ta, Mr. Melzel.
Yeah.
Enough. Okay.
Great quote.
To finish? What's the next thing you're going to do? Because of course you do have. You say nobody listens, but you do have quite a tribe, let's say, on the internet, looking at authenticsound.org. Yeah,
we will become one day.
Yeah, well, is that your plan? That's what I was going. Do you have a business plan?
Well, I think that we live also in a time where musicians have to think differently. I mean, how many people complain about classical music and it's dying and CDs and things like that. At the same time, you have, of course, the world with the internet. And of course, that's also too easy said. It's not that easy. So already from the time when I started with clavichord, I thought like, let's just go on YouTube and just do something. And from there, this really developed like a more professional, I think, in-depth vision on how we can build an audience. Yeah. And like now we are releasing the 9 symphonies on 10 CDs. Well, we sold, or we pre-sold on Kickstarter with crowdfunding like 220 packages already. Mm-hmm. So that's enormous, actually. Yeah. So that this allows us to continue. Next project, Alberto, is your complete keyboard works by Beethoven. 21 CDs.
So in a 3 years project. So that's
a lot of work.
A lot of work, but I totally enjoy that. In a way, I feel blessed that I'm the first one doing that. So yeah,
looking forward.
Yeah, me
Thank
too.
you, gentlemen.
Thank you for the interview.
If you want to check out that Beethoven package, the Beethoven CD box, the Beethoven full experience, there is a link in the description box. And also, if you would like to be closer to the project, there is a Patreon page. We have a wonderful community. My patrons, actually, for a long time, they are the backbones. They're the foundation of this project. So check it out. Links in the description box, as I said before. For now, thanks for watching. We see each other soon again. Bye.